Okay, man, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. Now, come on, now crank this motherfucker up.
Break it down like this.
Hello, Internet. Gino, that Pinguino Greco here again with another episode of Deep Listens, and today we are going to be discussing Resident Evil, the first one, the first Resident Evil game for the PlayStation. And joining me, as always, to discuss all things video games, Pete Busby. Hello, Pete.
Hey, always pumped to talk zombies. You know, we're really doing a blast in the past for this one. This week's fun fact is interesting. So this is from Live Science. The article, at least. I don't think they were the ones who discovered it. I'm just going to read a couple sentences. The human body literally glows, emitting a visible light in extremely small quantities at levels that rise and fall with the day. So research shows the body emits visible light. It's just 1,000 times less than the levels our eyes can see. So I think that's basically saying they don't emit light at all, but you can measure it a little bit somehow.
Huh. I wonder if there are any animals that have eyes sensitive enough to perceive that light. And if so, I hope they're not hunting us.
That's a good question. According to the same article, virtually all living creatures emit very weak light. It's thought to be a byproduct of free radicals.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so free radicals are not just like a cool name for like a skateboarding team?
No, they're what kills us if we don't have enough antioxidants.
Oh.
What?
Yeah, they're
I
just
didn't
like
know.
electrons that bounce around our body, messing stuff up.
I didn't know it kills us.
I mean, some people think that's what causes aging, but I don't think anyone knows.
I didn't know that. So antioxidants, that's in red wine, right?
Sure. Blueberries, acai berries, all those superfoods.
Okay. So I've got to eat more blueberries, drink more wine, and acai
Put the
more
blueberries
berries.
in the wine. Yeah.
Yeah. If I drink enough sangria, I'll live forever. That other voice you just heard is the Mistress of Games, M. Palladino. Hello, M.
Hello. Today we played Resident Evil.
Resident Evil.
I wanted to do the voice. I don't know if I can do the voice anymore, but someone did that voice, and we now know who they are. It's in the news.
Thank you, Relentless
recently.
Research,
Yes.
for getting us that information. Well, before we get into Resident Evil, the first one for the PlayStation, just a reminder, you can get in touch with the show at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our comment sections, and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. You can also support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens. And also, we are still continuing to remind people, if you're in a position to do so, please make a donation to the National Network of Abortion Funds. There's a link in the podcast description. So I mentioned the Patreon. You know, if you support the show for even $1, you will get access to our Discord, where you can talk with the hosts. You can suggest things. You can tell us what you want the robot to write about in Words from a Robot, which is our new segment that we're doing. You can also put a game into the slush pile for Off the Deep End, because they are playing games that are suggested by listeners and patrons. So go ahead, get in there. And if we get a few more people subscribe to the Patreon, we're still offering to play Sonic 06, that godless game.
That's the one where he makes out with the human, right?
Oh, yeah.
Hot.
Yep. 100%.
How many more people do we need to play that?
I think we need like 11, but
Okay.
go. You can be the person who makes us do it. So go ahead. Subscribe to the Patreon if you can. We also have some writing now on the Patreon. We're posting writings of some of the other hosts, like such as Braden Arbitrary Water Redacted. So, you know, it's the podcast feed and the Patreon both have writing on there. You can check out if you're a fan of the writings of some of the hosts of these shows. You'll get some of that good quality blog content as well. So, since we mentioned the Discord and all the Patreon stuff, maybe now is a time to look at the Discord report.
The Discord report. Boop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop. This week on the Discord, let's see.
The food crimes.
Well,
Food
there's
crimes are what
always
happened.
food crime.
I
You're
know,
gonna have
but
to be more specific.
this is a very specific food crime. Okay, so
Oh.
y'all,
Yes, right.
Pete, you're not aware of this because you were not in the Discord, but ZP told us a fun fact
Okay,
about himself.
Hold on.
Yep.
I want to know how Pete would handle this situation.
Yeah.
I
So
don't feel like it's going to be fun. Just already.
yeah.
It's going to be sad.
Probably.
So, people, when you listen to the Stranger Paradise episode that goes up, you're going to learn a fun fact about ZP, and this is kind of maybe, we're getting out in front of it. But I feel like it's worth mentioning because it's been said in the Discord enough. Pete, how do you check the cacao content, content of chocolate? How do you tell if chocolate's of a high quality? How do you do it?
Well, as a former resident of Hershey, Pennsylvania, I'm an expert on fine chocolates, obviously.
Yeah, the finest of chocolates, Hershey.
Exactly. Is the chocolate still in the wrapper?
It's in the. Let's say it's in the wrapper.
I
my
read
God.
the wrapper.
Okay, you're an idiot.
No.
You're
No.
wrong.
I'm a fool.
Incorrect.
You're a fool.
If the wrapper was not an option.
I would give up immediately.
Okay, well, ZP is, more industrious than that. He apparently takes the chocolate bar and hits himself on the head with it.
Well, all right. Okay. A couple follow-up questions.
Yes?
Uh-huh.
One, to accomplish what?
To ascertain the amount of cacao in the chocolate bar. For you see, if a chocolate is high in milk and sugar, it will bend to the head.
Right.
If it is high in cacao and dark, it will bonk off of the head rather than bend.
Does it have to be the head?
Yes.
Like he couldn't hit his elbow
No.
or like the table.
The head is the sensitive instrument.
So here's what I'll say.
Okay.
On the list, this is lunacy, obviously,
Yes.
but on the list of ZP's food crimes, not even in the top 5.
Oh yeah.
I didn't think so. When you listen to the Stranger Paradise podcast, dear listener, you'll learn about this at the same time I do. But I just wanted to run it by Pete because you've got a good head on your shoulders.
Yeah, apparently not a good bonking head though. Maybe I need
You
to
should
be a little
bonk
bit
it
more
with some
concerned about my
chocolate.
chocolate quality.
Yeah. So I think we're probably gonna use this new factoid for content at some point. I don't know how, but we'll figure out how.
I think what we need to do is have a food segment where we have unwrapped chocolate out of the wrappers, and then you bonk yourself in the head with it, and then we grade you based on how well you do.
That's what I was thinking. Was we have basically a bunch of unmarked bars, and then you have to arrange them in order of cacao content solely by bonking.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how you turn it into content.
We will test how well this method works compared to just looking at the chocolate bar and seeing how dark the chocolate is and going and rearranging it.
No, your
Just
eyes have
eat
to
some
be closed.
chocolate. Just
Okay.
enjoy it.
No, I mean, this has got to be like a sommelier, how they line up the wines and go like, can you pick the most expensive wine out of this based on taste? It's like that, except a mook hits themselves in the head with chocolate. So that was going on.
Other than that, Twitter is still imploding.
Yep.
That's happening even more.
The Fantasy Basketball League continues apace.
It does.
You're still in first.
I think ZP had a banger of a night, and so he took the lead by 5. But it is unlikely he's going to keep up that pace. So
five what?
Five
Roto
points?
points.
Oh
Yeah,
gosh, I forgot it was Roto.
I don't understand how the point system works. Also, I'm 3 points behind him at this point.
Yeah, he's got more games played he's got 7 more games played than you, and he's got 11 more games played than me. So some of it'll even out come end of year. But his process of selecting as many members of the Sacramento Kings as possible seems to have paid off because they play at the fastest pace in the NBA, which means more stats. So yeah, that's still going on apace. Trades have been made, Pete. Trades.
Who's trading?
I traded with M.
I got roped into some trades, and then Gino traded me a guy, and then got rid of him.
Well, you traded me Steven Adams, and I had to get rid of him because I had too many injured players, and I needed someone else.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
And then I traded Josh Hart. I got Josh Hart for Klay Thompson.
Okay.
And that was with Jeff. So
yeah,
host
who
of
knows
Off the Deep how
End,
that's
Jeff
going.
Rude.
Yep.
His team, considering he's only allowed to have people with affiliations to Portland and Seattle, and Washington State, is not doing. I mean, he's in third to last, but he's not in last. Oh no, he's in 7th now. He moved on up. Look at him.
That's pretty good.
We do have some people who I don't know if they're actually playing.
Who are very AFK, yes.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes.
It's okay. They're just 100 games played behind everyone else. I'm sure they'll catch up. That'll be fine. Yeah, so that's going on. We had some more Yu-Gi-Oh stuff coming up in the card channel. There's, it's a fun time.
Yu-Gi-Oh stuff.
I'm killing it at Marvel Snap still.
Yeah, you've got a problem. You installed a add-in.
I got a little thing that tracks your progress. So, and then I immediately went and did a dive like 20 levels. And I got back out of the hole and I made it to infinite. Yay.
Way to go. Is that game,
So,
I saw they released new cards. Is it less balanced now?
I could talk about it. I think that the new card that is part of their like monthly rotation is fucked. It's the Silver Surfer, and he increases your 3-cost cards by 3 once he goes down. And so you'll be playing and you're like, okay, I think I'm going to win by a little bit. And then they'll drop a Silver Surfer, and then you're like, well, they just gained 12 points on each spot, so I'm fucked. So I hate that bitch.
So it makes it gives +3 power to all your 3 drops?
Yeah, so if you're playing a deck that is all 3 drops, you just go pop, 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 pop. And then I think I have a chance of like catching up with you, and then you just drop him last, and then you're like, well,
your math was wrong. All of it was wrong. Sorry.
Yeah. I was on another streak, and then I went up against that deck like 5 times earlier. So I was like, I'm just going to put this aside for now. I'm going to finish the game I'm supposed to be playing.
That's fair. Good. Thank you. Thank you for tearing yourself away from the Silver Surfer and his taunts. So time for my obsession of the week, and I got pulled into anime again, folks. And it's all Bridget's fault.
Which one?
So I watched some Chainsaw Man.
Is it good?
It is.
Okay.
It's about a horny little guy who he's a teenager, and he's like, I believe Braden describes him as a Dickensian orphan.
Yeah. I mean,
Yep.
Like nobody in Charles Dickens stories ever sell their testicles for money, but yeah, he's like pretty Dickensian.
He only sold one.
That's true. That's true. In his defense.
Yeah. So he was living on the streets. He was doing really poorly. He had to pay off a Yakuza debt his dad ran up, and then that caused problems. He's paying off debt. He's living in a very poor situation, and then he becomes friends with a chainsaw demon dog thing.
Yep.
And then goes
as we
out
all
and,
do.
Yeah, and then he's killing demons for money because it pays better than the other stuff he's doing, and then he ends up getting killed. by a demon that's too strong, and then the chainsaw dog fuses with him and gives him a new life as the Chainsaw Man. He's a normal guy most of the time, but he's got a ripcord on his chest, and when he pulls it, a chainsaw rips out of his face, and chainsaws rip out of his arms. And the only thing that stops him from rampaging is he bleeds himself, and if he runs too low on blood, his chainsaws retract. But he's part demon, part human, and he goes on a zany mission to fulfill his horny desires to eventually touch a boob or kiss. That's his life's dream. His life's dream is to go all the way with a lady. That's his only goal.
I mean, as an anime connoisseur, I can say that that's the motivations of many anime protagonists.
Yeah, that's the motivations of most of them. But this show is remarkable in that the main character's horniness seems to be more restrained than in other shows. Like
more restrained.
Yeah, so he's very horny, but he does not sexually assault people.
That's good. Does his nose ever bleed?
No, not that I've seen.
Nice.
He's mostly like asking, like people are talking to him about, hey, if you do this thing, to kill this demon, then we can make out. Or if you do this thing to kill a demon, then you can touch a boob. Who's to say?
People just like straight up say that. They're just like, hey, that's what will happen.
He's like, I would really like to touch a boob. And they're like, well, you can't touch mine. And then he's like, okay, fine. And then they're like, well, if you kill this demon for me, you can. And he's like, okay, now I'm super motivated.
Good trade.
Yep, and that's how the show goes. And then you get to a later episode, and things change wildly. So I would say it's pretty paint by numbers early on, though more violent than most. I mean, it's a man who's got chainsaws coming out of his arms and his head. So
that's true. He's not talking out his problems.
No, he's not. So I would say if you can watch through episode 8 and are not intrigued by this show, I'd be surprised. And also, I think that the stakes are high.
Which episode was the point where you liked it?
I liked it.
When did you buy in?
I bought in on episode 1 or 2. I thought it was fun. But then at episode 8, I was like, oh, this is a special show. Like, this is a better show than I gave it credit for.
I mean, Gino, how much higher could the stakes be? Like you already described the highest stakes possible.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, he is trying to kill demons because he's just a horny kid. And originally, he's like, oh, you're going to let me have a shower and eat? What the hell? Like, I was eating bread. I was sharing bread with a demon dog, and now I get a bread with jam? My life's great. So he's very, happy with his life. And so the only thing he has at that point that he hasn't fulfilled is, being horny. But most of the other demon slayers who he's working with have, my family was murdered by a demon. I'm going to take revenge on them. Or, I've been working at this job for 3 years, which is longer than anyone else, because everyone dies young when they're hunting demons. And I want revenge for all of the other, all of my partners who've been killed. So everyone else is dealing with, high stakes stuff for the most part. And he's just this goofy Goku, but horny, who's just rolling around. It's a weird show. It's fun. I think after episode 8, it picks up considerably. And it's still coming out, so I don't know how the first season ends. And I also started watching Spy X Family, or Spy Cross Family. What is... do you know how to pronounce that?
It's...
Spy Family?
I just call it Spy Family. It's like Hunter x Hunter. You don't pronounce the X. It's Hunter
I said
Hunter.
the X.
Yeah, it is Hunter Hunter in Japan. So I think it's Spy Family. Do you know the premise of this one, Pete?
I assume it's a family of spies.
It's a spy who is charged with he's got a mission that requires him to infiltrate the social circle of a fancy school, and so he has to assemble a family so that he can do his job to infiltrate this school. So he adopts a small child, and the small child, it turns out, is a psychic, and he doesn't know it. And then he has to find a wife So he gets he finds a woman who's like old enough and not married enough that people are starting to get suspicious of her, and it's kind of a like Cold War-y situation. Everyone's very suspicious of each other all the time. And so he like immediately sets up an arrangement where they get married, but it's like an on paper marriage, so that he can get this girl into a school. And it turns out his wife is an assassin.
It feels like there's a lot going on here.
And he doesn't know any of it. No one knows any of each other's stuff except the little kid who knows because she can read minds.
Yeah, Anya knows because no one has any secrets from her, but she's also like a spy fan. Like she watches a spy show, and
yeah, it's like
sorry,
Lupin the Third adjacent.
Yeah. My roommate was excited in the background. Yeah, so she's like, hell yeah, I'm gonna be a spy too.
I'm gonna be a spy kid.
Yeah, it's so good. It's very good.
Anya's very adorable.
Yes. This is like, you know that there was a meme that was like, who's the Shinzo Abe wanted people to have babies because Japan's birth rate was going down. And then as soon as he got this show came out basically, and everyone was like, maybe I want to have a family actually. Because it's so cute. It's just like wholesome, literally found family stuff. So
yeah. So check out either of those shows. They're both good times.
Yes.
All right. So now let's turn our attention, just complete 180 away from adorable families to horrible zombie-infested mansions with Resident Evil. Pete, would you mind explaining to me what Resident Evil is? This game, Resident Evil. I don't think it's going to stick.
It's a deep cut. It's a deep cut.
Yeah.
I still don't understand the name, so don't ask me why it's called Resident Evil.
If it makes you feel better, in Japanese, the name of the series is Biohazard.
Mm-hmm.
That makes a lot more sense, yeah.
But yeah.
So Resident Evil / Biohazard is the story of 4, oh gosh, what'd you call them? Like mercenaries? They're members of STARS.
I think it's like a SWAT situation.
Gotcha. So they go into this mansion in the woods because calamitous things have been happening. So their alpha team, Bravo team, has already went in and basically gotten wiped out. We don't know what happened to Bravo, but they're not responding anymore. So we go in and try to find out what's going in this mansion, and turns out, spoiler alert, it's zombies.
It's zombies and skinless dogs and puzzles.
Yep.
And doors locked by metals. So yeah, you're dropped in, and boy oh boy, the opening cutscene. What did y'all think? So which version of Resident Evil did you play first off?
Real deal, PS1 style.
PS1.
Yeah,
okay.
The one you told us to.
I played the director's cut version because that is what is available on the PlayStation Network right now. It's the same game as the original Resident Evil. It has the original Resident Evil on there, except its soundtrack is garbage. Just absolute dog shit.
Why is there a difference in the soundtrack?
I don't know why they recorded a different soundtrack. I'm going to find the story of this because I believe it was posted in the Discord. Let me see if I can find the article on this. Because there's a story behind the man who did the director's cut soundtrack that's fucking incredible. But let me see if I can find it. ZP, if you're in chat, if someone's in chat who has that article on them, please post it because it's a hell. Yep, there we go. Found it on The Verge. Okay, I will tell you about the soundtrack a little bit later. But like that's the only difference. That and the version I played has DualShock support, so it's got rumble. And it's got analog control available, but it's still tank controls, so it's not that significant. But the version I played also has a beginner mode where things do less damage and you have more ammo, and a range mode where they move where all the items are.
Do they like randomize it, or is it a remixed like?
It's a remix. So basically, to give people who have played the game a like slightly different experience, they remixed it. So that the arrange is something. Basically, Resident Evil Director's Cut came out before they finished 2 because they struck while they saw Resident Evil was really popular. Capcom saw that they had sold a hit, and they wanted to fill in the dead time while they were creating Resident Evil 2. So they did a re-release. Very cheaply done. So yeah, what did y'all think? So you both had the full action cutscene, right? With the actors at the beginning.
Really immerses you right off the bat.
Yeah.
How'd you enjoy that?
I'm gonna go back and watch it again. It sure is a little video.
It's a full set. So like they knew what the limitations of their material were, and I respect them for that. But it's not good.
I've seen better. It's just kind of a lot of running, a lot of quick cuts. It's all in black and white. There is a helicopter involved. The notable thing is all these actors were just people who were living in Japan at the time that this game was under development.
They just needed American-looking people.
Yeah,
that'd be my next question: is why are all the actors white?
Yes, they had the character models already made up for the game, but they were like, we wanted to get a close enough like white person who was local, and so they just found like 5, I think, people who were in Japan at the time, and then threw together this little thing at the very back end of development. And in the actual credits, none of them were given like their last names.
No.
It just says like Joseph and Eric.
Those are some white guy names.
Yeah. But they're playing like Albert Wesker and Chris Redfield, like people who are going to go on in the Resident Evil series to become like pretty important. So for a long time, no one knew who these people were. The person who played Jill, her name is Inez, Inezh. I think that's how you pronounce that. I don't know. No one knew. No, we still don't know who she is, but we figured out like who Barry is as recently as March 30th of 2022. So it took about 30 years for people to track down these actors, and they basically all said the same thing. Like, it was fine. You know, I was in Japan. I needed some money. They were like, they came to me, which was weird, and said, hey, you want to do a little movie thing? They were like, I guess.
Like, clothes on, right?
Clothes on. Yeah.
Clothes on, but different clothes. We need you to wear these these cop outfits.
Yeah. Here, put on these sunglasses and never take them off.
Mm-hmm. The guy who plays Barry says that they had him dye his hair, and they just use straight peroxide. So yeah, so his hair was just like red, and he had like, oh, this was Chris. He was like, they used straight peroxide, which turned my hair almost a red color. That red hair with my almost black beard stubble looked ridiculous, so they decided the character would be clean shaven. So it's just, oh yeah, and then we have a picture of Chris Redfield with his like ridiculous red hair. Charles Kraslowski.
And the funniest part to me is that they ultimately ended up making the video black and white because they didn't want blood.
Even matter.
Yeah, because blood, they didn't want a higher rating. because like the skinless dogs and everything, like there's blood in that scene. So they made everything black and white so they could get by the censors.
Is that why they did that?
That is what I have been told, yeah.
Even though the game is like you're blowing up things
Zombie
with
heads?
yeah.
I guess real people
Shotgun.
covered in blood is
I
you
guess
know,
that's
a step
different.
above. I mean, this is right around like Night Trap had only come out a few years before.
That's true.
So like, you know, you're not that far away from the big satanic panic nonsense that happened around video games around this time. I'm just going to verify the dates there to make sure I'm not off base, but I'm pretty sure like Night Trap and Mortal Kombat were
Night Trap was in 1992,
Yeah,
so
92.
it already had come out.
So they knew. So the people who made Resident Evil knew horror video games could work and make money.
Mm-hmm.
They were
Yes.
like, we saw Night Trap, the critical and commercial success, and we built off that legacy.
Of course. The successor to Resident Evil, the spiritual successor to Night Trap. Yes. Yeah, Mortal Kombat was also 92. So like, yeah,
Yep.
a bunch of they knew like where the fault lines were, at least in the US at the time, and it was realistic looking people and maybe blood.
Mm-hmm.
And God help you if you have co-eds running around. So yeah, it starts off with this incredibly ridiculous video. It's just so good. All the line reads are great. The people just kind of pointing guns just off screen.
Hold on. Great is a strong word.
Perfect? Is perfect? That's better?
Game changing?
Game changing? Immaculate?
They sure are reading lines.
They are very literate.
Uh-huh.
I love that the scene, like they have some like newspapers spinning in telling you like what's going on in town, and one of them just says bizarre murders, but it's spelled B-I-Z B-I-Z-A-R-R. No E. Bizarre murders.
Bizarre murder.
Also, neither here nor there, but they use effect instead of affect later on in the game as well. Just
Yep.
something I was forced to notice.
I mean, the cutscene just begins with Alpha Team is flying around the forest zone situated in northwest Raccoon City, where we're searching for the helicopter of our compatriots, Bravo Team, who disappeared during the middle of our mission. It's just so good. Like, every word choice is so weird. Jill, Joseph, Wesker, hooah, ha! Chris, no, don't go. Jill, run for the house. Yeah, you should. Oh boy, it's just so good. And then the game starts, and it's kind of your early 90s, early mid 90s PlayStation formula of pre-rendered backgrounds, polygonal models. So, if you're not aware, the PlayStation, one of its big limitations was the number of polygons it could render on screen at one time. It could only support I think a couple hundred. I don't remember the total number of polygons, but it's low when compared to like the N64. So a lot of game makers opted for pre-rendered backgrounds because the static background the PlayStation could handle just fine, and then you could put more into the polygonal models of your actual characters walking around on screen. So that is what they went with. The PlayStation 1 Final Fantasies did the same thing. I believe Legend of Dragoon did the same thing. Like, this was pretty bog standard at this time. The game also has tank controls. Pete, is this your first exposure to tank controls?
So it's my first Resident Evil game, and I can't recall having played another game with tank controls.
I think
was the original GoldenEye tank controls?
No, I don't
I
think
don't
so.
think so.
Then
I
no,
don't
this
think
is
it would
probably
have
my
gotten
first.
popular if it was.
It was a little different. Like GoldenEye, you had to press a button to anchor yourself to the ground so you could shoot, but that was
Oh yeah, that
was
was
kind of
fucking
different.
weird.
But yeah, we did play Silent Hill 2. You can play Silent Hill 2 with tank controls, but you can also turn them off, at least in like the Xbox version of Silent Hill 2. So it's possible you played a version of Silent Hill 2 where it did not force tank controls onto you. But Em, do you want to explain why they use tank controls? Like, what does tank control solve? I can if you're not as comfortable. What it was trying to solve.
I think it's if I had to guess, I'm just gonna guess that it's the static cameras that they use require like a tank control. I don't know. What's the actual? Is it the?
Yeah, you're right.
Cameras?
It's camera
Okay.
angles. Yeah, so like
You made me doubt myself by like.
no. It's simple.
Okay.
It's just because like tank controls, for anyone who's not familiar, we basically mean that the character you're controlling, instead of just like pressing up and your character goes up, press down, they go down, press right, they go right, left, they go left. Tank controls basically treats it as though your character, think like a tank, right? It can only go forward. It can only go forward. And if it needs to turn right, it needs to spin in place until it's facing to the right because it's got treads. The same concept applies to Jill Valentine and Chris. They can go forward and back, but they can't go side to side. No wiggle.
You need to hold left and right in order to pivot, which is, if you've played any game in the last 20 years, feels very weird, and I never got used to it throughout the entire game.
Yeah, and it is because this game has static camera angles and it's pre-rendered backgrounds as well, so you're not really in a 3D space the same way you are in games with, fully 3D environments. So like, Mario 64 came out the same year as this and had more regular controls. Some other games like that have done pre-rendered backgrounds, Legend of Dragoon does not behave like this, neither does Final Fantasy VII, like some of the other games, Chrono Cross, some of the other games that have used the same technology. But the point here, like the reason they did it was that if you know which direction your character is facing, you know which direction they're going to move when you press forward. Whereas if you, cut to another screen, Jill, she might start, and especially because there's camera cuts within a certain room. As long as you can see Jill, you know what forward is going to do. It's going to move her forward in whatever direction she's looking. So they can do dynamic camera cuts. They can have you move into a new room and be like, on the far end of the room and know that if you press forward, if Jill's facing you, she's going to walk forward. Like that's the idea. But obviously in practice, it makes for the character controlling less like a human being and more like a tank, which is super weird and awkward. It means you can't do any there's no strafing in this game. You cannot strafe. Your character is moving forward or not. It makes aiming a pain in the ass. It makes running away from zombies a pain in the ass. But I guess tank controls do, because they make your character so awkward, it does add a certain amount of horror to the experience. Because you're not fully in control of your character, it makes these awkward, shambling zombies much more of a threat. Right? Did you get a similar effect?
Yeah, well, it's definitely annoying. And it definitely made things more difficult. I was fairly convinced, too, as I played this game, that they really wanted to make a door opening simulator, and they just needed enough around it to justify the game.
The fucking doors opening. I don't know how it was on the version you were playing, Gino, but every door in this game opens with an animation that takes several seconds longer than is comfortable.
Years of my life gone.
Yeah. I described it as I love playing running through halls, opening doors simulator. Because that's basically what the first part of the game was. Mm-hmm. Oh, man. It's rough.
Yeah, the beginning of the game is definitely the roughest, some of the roughest part, because there's just a lot of backtracking. There's a lot of space you need to cover, and there's not even that many enemies, so it can be a little bit, the location's very sparse.
Yes.
But what I would say...
I will say, before we get off of it, this was a technical problem-solving thing. At the time, the game needed to load.
Yes.
So this was their way of we'll just show this door opening and it'll look like something is happening, when really we're just loading the next part of the game. So there is a reason for it, but man, does it not hold up when your computer is when
your PlayStation's souped up, when you've got a very good PlayStation.
Yes, such a good PlayStation. This PlayStation 1 that I'm playing it on can also play Final
Fortnite.
Fantasy 14. So,
Yeah, I mean, I found I actually like the loading screens just as a way of making the space. It kind of put you in a first-person perspective, imagining moving through the space. It felt like almost visual Foley work, almost. Made me feel like I was a little bit experiencing what Jill was experiencing opening doors. And I played as Jill. Did everyone play as Jill?
No, I played
Yes.
as Chris.
Oh, you poor
Ooh.
soul. We'll talk about the difference between those two in a second.
Horrible. Horrible.
Not recommended.
But I liked that it was always like a door floating in space, just to kind of connect these different rooms together. Because sometimes in these pre-rendered background games, you can feel like your character, like how do these spaces relate to one another? Seeing the door actually open and move through it, I thought was a nice little transition, especially since they had to they wanted to mask the loading times, one way or another.
My favorite version of this was when you go up like a ladder or stairs, and it's just a JPEG of the stairs, and then they kind of like jolt it forward so it looks like you're walking up it. It's an interesting way of solving that problem.
Yeah,
I'll
for
say.
sure. Yeah, so that's definitely an interesting thing. So Pete, you played as Chris, huh?
I did. And I
Shump.
I should have asked for advice beforehand. It was my mistake.
What is
Yeah.
the difference
So
between
the differences
Jill
are,
and Chris?
well, one's a lady and one's a guy. No.
Yeah.
So Jill has 8 inventory slots. Chris has 6.
Oh my god, he has less inventory?
Yes.
Oh, what the fuck?
Jill gets a lockpick, which allows her to open any like small doors. That you like, if there's a drawer that
So
you could
angry when I
open,
saw that.
you can just unlock it. Chris needs to find small keys to unlock those. Jill can just unlock them.
How many small keys are required?
How many things did you open? Think of everything you opened in the entire game, and that's how many keys you needed.
Well, the lockpick is for like specific things, like if you find a drawer or something on a
Yeah,
desk.
every one of those drawers. For every single one of those drawers, he needs to find a key.
How far are the keys away from the place they're supposed to go to?
I mean, it's
Enough
not
that it was
1-to-one.
annoying.
Small keys is just like it will open any of those small drawers.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
But
see.
you need to find them, and Chris has 6 inventory slots,
Yeah, well, that's ridiculous.
and they take one of them up. Can you stack them at least, Pete? Can you at least hold 2 small keys in the same slot?
I believe so.
Okay, thank goodness.
Oof. Okay.
So yeah, that's going on. Chris, I think, has a little bit more health, so you got that going for him. And Jill gets access to it was called the bazooka in my version of the game. I think it's the grenade launcher. It's a grenade launcher. Chris does not have access to the grenade launcher. So he's got worse weapons, more health, a more finicky system, and
More annoying dialogue.
Yep.
He never gets the grenade launcher?
No.
What are you using the fucking...
The Magnum or the shotgun, depending on like how many bullets you got.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
He also, Gino, you didn't even list the most annoying thing
Oh, what is it?
about Chris. Can't play the piano, which is more relevant than you might expect in a Resident Evil game.
Do you have to find someone to play the piano for him?
Yes.
Awesome.
And they need to, not only do you need to find somebody, they need to practice.
Oh, no.
You need to give them time to practice.
And who do you find who helps you do this?
It's Rebecca, one of your fellow STARS members, who, like, I don't know how, like, she enlisted in STARS. I don't know what the recruitment process is like, but I think she's like a babysitter. She's like 19 or something, and just like wandered into the facility, and they were like, "Good enough, let's go."
She looks like, in the opening thing, Jessie from Final Fantasy VII.
Yes.
She's got like the red headband and everything. Just picture that. Not exactly a capable Stars member, but at least she knows how to play the piano.
She plays. So you have to play at a certain segment of the game. For listeners who are unfamiliar, you have to play the Eternal Sonata, Moonlight Sonata.
Moonlight Sonata, not Eternal Sonata.
Which one's a video game title and which one's a song?
Moonlight Sonata is a song. Eternal Sonata is a video game.
you have to play a 40-hour
game. Play Eternal Sonata real quick.
Which came out decades later, but they knew.
Yep.
You have to play the Moonlight Sonata to open a door. It's basically like the key. But she plays it, it doesn't work, and then Chris is basically like, what the hell was that? And she's like, oh, I put my own spin on it. And he's like, don't do that. Practice.
I mean, also worth mentioning, Chris has, you need to find a broken shotgun so you can get the real shotgun. Because for Jill, you just pick up the shotgun and then Barry saves you if you're going to get squished by the trap that gets deployed when you pick up the shotgun. Chris doesn't have a Barry, so he just gets killed if you don't get the shotgun properly.
So hold on. If you go in there and you take the shotgun, you will just get a lose screen.
Well, you walk into the room where the ceiling slowly descends on you and crushes Chris to death.
Oh, and then it's a game over, right?
Yeah. I think so.
And there's no way to avoid that if you just...
You can put the shotgun back.
No. Oh.
Yeah, you just can't take it.
You can't keep it.
Oh, I see.
Also, so Chris, you know the giant plant?
Yeah.
Yes.
So when you play as Jill, as I understand it, you don't need to create the poison to kill the plant.
I mean, you don't need to do it with either of them.
You don't have to do it with Chris either?
It
makes it way easier.
Poison?
Well, because Chris gets captured and then suddenly you're controlling Rebecca for a while.
Oh, what?
What?
Yeah, and I just assumed Rebecca has no combat efficacy, so I made the poison. Maybe I did it wrong. I mean, that's definitely within the realm of possibility.
I mean, that's possible.
It sounds like we played two different games by all your reports.
I mean, Jill doesn't have to make the poison, but it makes the fight much easier if you make the poison.
So I did with Chris. I can't say that I had to, but it definitely felt like they wanted me to severely.
Okay. Well, that's very interesting. Okay. So beginning of this game, it sounds like Jill, I didn't think Jill and Chris were that different. I thought Chris was just strictly worse Jill. But it sounds like there are some story branches.
He's definitely, the story differences are also worse.
So when you first get into the place, everyone immediately does the Scooby-Doo let's all split up move. Wesker tells everyone to split up. So Jill and Barry go into a side room. They find blood. Jill wanders into a side hall. She gets attacked by a zombie. Barry kills the zombie. You, at that point, are in Resident Evil and start running around. How long did it take y'all to start interacting with things and solving puzzles? Like, how long were you wandering around lost, Em?
I mean, not especially, because I went into the next room, and then you go across the hall, and then there is, what the fuck was it? What was the first puzzle that was there?
Well, there's
the room with the map in it. There's a woman with the ladder. You go up the ladder, you get the map. And then from there, I was like, well, I played Resident Evil 4, so I kind of know what I'm in for here. Probably 15 years ago. So then I was just running around looking for, where is the medallion I need to put in this thing? That whole business. Yeah,
and it's a lot of picking things off the wall so that you can plug them in someplace else.
A lot of sometimes you push a statue around. Like one of the things there's a statue on the balcony over the dining room, and then you push that over, and then you go back down, and then you pick up a thing out of the rubble, and that's used to open
tiger's eye.
Yeah. Oh man, the tiger's eyes, there's there's so many fucking the crank, the battery later on,
Multiple cranks.
multiple cranks.
The books that you need to examine so that you can get the metal out of them, because
Yeah.
the books just hangs out in your inventory otherwise.
So here's the thing, right? Having never played a Resident Evil game, like it's literally my first one, I did not realize initially that I should just be checking everything. Like literally examine everything when you walk into a room.
You fool.
Yeah,
I know.
mean,
I don't know what I was thinking.
this game is truly, it's an adventure game. Like, it's an adventure game where there's combat, and the combat kind of, you press R1 on a PlayStation controller to anchor Jill or Chris in place, and then they will attack with their equipped weapon when you press X. If you're not in combat mode, X is your interact button, and you can hold down square to run around. Like, those are pretty much the only things you can do. And you can also open up your menu. So, like, your character, it's kind of a Scum Engine game masquerading as an action game.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, Scum Engine, if you're not familiar, that's the LucasArts adventure game model. So think of your Day of the Tentacle or
that's what I was
Monkey
thinking
Island.
of. Monkey Island.
Yeah, we played that.
It's basically that, except sometimes you would have to click on things in Monkey Island. In this, you have to detect a 2-pixel line on a desk, and that's like an item you need to interact with.
Yeah, you need to make this tank waddle up to the pixel, and then you need to press X and hope that you're at the right viewing angle. Otherwise, you need to rotate this human being until they're actually lined up properly. There's a lot of box pushing puzzles as well, which I found very infuriating because it engages pushing mode by just rubbing up against the object for long enough, which sounds easier than it is. I'll say that.
Yep.
But yeah, there's a lot of like find item, check item, see what it can be used with, combine. Like it has combine, just like in an adventure game. There's a lot of items you need to combine together, and it's mostly just find a doohickey, find the receptacle for the doohickey, advance. You are finding inputs and outputs, and you're trying to line them up with one another.
The combine is also how you reload your weapons, so that's fun.
Yes,
just
and you also need to stack ammo together.
Yep. You need to stack your ammo so it doesn't take up multiple slots. You need to use the storage system to dump the stuff you don't need at this particular moment, because there's a lot of stuff that you're going to have to rotate through. There's like multiple different kinds of ammo. It's a lot of stuff.
I was expecting too that there's like storage units wouldn't be connected.
That would fucking blow so
I know.
hard.
I was thinking like what would be like this is one of the most annoying inventory systems I've ever seen. What would be the most annoying thing they could do here? Oh, I know. Individual storage lockers. I was glad to see that was not the case.
You know, it would be a solution to this is what if we made it into a grid, and then each item had a certain dimension on the grid. Like your shotgun would be a 2x4 thing, and then you could rearrange stuff on that grid. This is what they did in Resident Evil 4, if you don't know.
That's the innovation.
Yes,
grids.
We made it better, and people liked that.
Is it still like Resi 4 is probably like the most famous one?
Yeah.
Is it still an adventure game?
I think that one is a little bit more of a third-person shooter by that point.
Yeah, that one's a dumb action game for the most part.
Yep. Nice. It's got like the what is it, when a boulder is rolling at you and have to push a button real quick so you don't get rolled over.
Quick time.
That's 5.
Quick time events.
Resident Evil 5 has quick time events. I don't know that 4 does the same thing. I don't know.
I think
is the boulder in 5 or 4?
I think 4 has it.
There's a boulder in all of them.
I shouldn't say. One too.
Yeah, I shouldn't say which one has the boulder.
Speaking of which, I wanted to look up when Indiana Jones came out.
That was the 80s, wasn't it?
The 80s.
That was, yes, long before this. 81 was Raiders of the Lost Ark. So they knew what they were doing, putting a boulder in here.
For sure. And I think, the adventure game elements, I think, add something to this. And were it not for a game like Resident Evil, I don't even know if escape rooms would be a thing, right? Isn't the joy of an escape room basically being stuck in the mansion in Resident Evil and figuring something out?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, there's less like frog monsters.
But not no frog monsters.
You never know. This game basically defined the survival horror genre, which also defined a lot of genres after that. I don't think we would have like, let's see, what's the furthest we could take this?
I mean, it literally coined the term survival horror. Like when you load the game up, it says "Welcome back to the world of survival horror," which that does a lot of work all by itself, really.
Yep. There would not be any of the what were we talking about before the show? Was that Silent Hill
or Silent Hill and
Silent Hill wouldn't
Dead
exist.
Space.
Dead Space, Alone in the Dark, Until Dawn. Basically all of the Five Nights at Freddy's for you Zoomers out there who are listening to our show.
Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
A bunch of these Resident Evil a debt, though. I think Clock Tower came out before Resident Evil, so like there were other horror games before Resident Evil, but it was the most successful of them, and kind of launched the genre more properly.
Yes. At the time of this coming out, it was the best-selling PlayStation game ever. Immediately, it was trumped by like Tekken 2, though, which came out a week later. So,
I also, if you didn't have Resident Evil, I don't think you would have BioShock. One, for survival horror reasons, but two, also for incredible story twist reasons.
I think things, twists are universal.
Resident Evil didn't invent twists.
I don't think it invented twists. No. I think we would have gotten there. But yeah, the survival horror part, I think that it did a lot of work for sure.
Do you think this game is twisty? I didn't view it as a very twisty game.
No, clearly the people who were shady were clearly shady from the beginning.
Yeah.
I can't believe we can't trust this guy with a perfect pompadour and his sunglasses. Or slick back hair. Greasy slick back hair.
You're telling me he's evil? There's no way.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
if I didn't watch like every Resident Evil movie or play all the other Resident Evil games, I would never suspect Albert Wesker was a bad guy.
Yeah. We did, we were talking about some of the annoyances of this game, and I feel like we would be remiss to not mention ink ribbons and the saving system.
Oh my fucking god, the ink ribbons.
Dear Lord.
As a developer, what do you think of the finite saves that this game doles out to you?
I would like to say I understand the impetus to make it so you have a resource that allows you to save your game, but also this is on the PlayStation 1, which had a memory card, and if you stopped playing the game and you did not save, you would lose everything up to your last save. So in the event that you were a teen or young child in 1996 when this game came out and your mother went, "Hey, it's time for dinner, turn that game off," you would need to find an ink ribbon in order to save the game, or you turned the game off and you accepted the fact that you would lose some progress. So thinking of it in that context, I hate it. Thinking of it in my own context of playing this game, my PlayStation has a save exactly where you are in the moment button, so I was less bothered by it. But also, the thought of having to use that system makes me want to not play the game.
What problem are they trying to solve?
It's not a problem they're trying to solve. It's, I think, to create tension. Like they wanted you to have finite saves, so they were really thinking about, do I need to save now? Because
They're jerks.
having like if you were saving every time you did something, the tension of getting killed would be significantly reduced, and they wanted you to feel like, oh crap, I could save right now, and then I will be, prevented from getting backtracked by a zombie jumping out at me. But I only have 3 ink ribbons left. Maybe I'll need them later.
Yeah.
It's just to put that thought into the player's head, and it got me a few times. Like there were some moments where I was low on ink ribbons and tried to say, okay, I'll just make progress here, and got by an enemy. Not even because I hadn't been in the room before where the enemy jumps out at you, like that sort of thing. So I get the impulse. It's just at one point I had to eat dinner, and instead of saving the game, I paused it, went downstairs, ate dinner, and came back because the ink ribbons, I only had like 1 ink ribbon left.
Yep.
And wouldn't have been able to save.
Mm-hmm. I understand the impulse, but also I think they learn pretty quickly in this series that is not the way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know what Resident Evil gets rid of the ink ribbons, but up until the most recent one, they still keep the typewriter as the save point, which is interesting.
I mean, you could create a mechanic that, like, every time you die shoots hot needles into your eyes, and like that would ramp up the tension too. But there's a reason probably we don't.
Instead, they do ink ribbons. So in a way, it's merciful.
Yeah, it's a compromise, really, when you think about it that way.
So it's an annoying system. I never found I was really that pinched for ink ribbons. They give you like 20-something.
Yeah, they give you like 2 next to each typewriter you find, really.
For the most part, yeah.
For the most part.
And the safe rooms, they're only like 5 throughout the game, but they're generally pretty evenly spread out throughout the mansion. So I didn't mind it that much.
Yeah.
But
they're also well located so that they're places that you're going to be doubling back to fairly frequently, or like if there's a loop that you're going through, it'll be like centrally located. So it's not too bad. It could have been much worse given the time frame that this game came out in, which was not known for having well-spaced save points.
Fun, enjoyment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's less backtrack. Like, there's backtracking, but it's not as bad as the backtracking in other contemporary games in some ways. So I think the enemy types in this game also really jump out to me, because I thought of Resident Evil as a zombie game, first and foremost. But I don't think that's actually correct. Like, obviously the thing you're dealing with here is the T virus. It is a virus that like mutates living creatures, and it can mutate any living creature. It can mutate plants, animals, anything. So they make this first Resident Evil game kind of a grab bag of B-movie monsters instead of just solely leaning in on one sort of enemy type. It's not just a zombie game. It's zombies, it's plants, it's
giant snakes, giant spiders.
Skinless dogs, crows.
What was your favorite enemy that you came across?
It's got to be the shark.
Why was it the shark?
Yeah, no, there's only one right answer. It's Neptune.
Yeah. Neptune is the name given to it in one of the files that you find. What was the other one? There were like multiple names.
Cerberus.
Yeah, those
skinless
are dogs.
dog.
But the frogs weren't.
Frogmen.
Yeah, they weren't like a mythical name.
Hunters.
So there were like things that looked like half people, half crows, in the way that like the frogs were people frogs.
Those are chimeras, I think. The ones that crawl around on the ceiling and suck.
Yeah, what are they?
Oh, yeah.
They're like mutated people, I think.
I don't know.
Okay.
They're not anything.
They're full of maggots when you shoot them, and that sucks.
Yeah, they're gross.
Gross.
I was assuming they were like people fly hybrids or something, but what do I know?
Oh, maybe they're doing the fly thing?
Maybe. They're just jamming everything in there.
Yeah, but it's funny. They said, well, what are people scared of? And then they just threw it all in there. Like, here's birds. perhaps you've seen the movie by Alfred Hitchcock, The Birds.
Mm-hmm.
Here's giant spiders. Here's a giant plant with vines that'll get you. And fishmen. Anything, any B-movie horror villain. And I think it really works with the dialogue. It makes this kind of a fun B-movie game,
Yeah, when
Yep.
when they kill that plant and like Chris and Rebecca are like controlling, they're like, oh God, we almost died. And then Chris just goes, yeah, we really got to the root of that problem. And like there's almost like a pause for like a rim shot, like he doesn't sound, no one in this whole game, at least on Chris's side, sounds scared at any point.
No.
No one.
Barry doesn't sound scared. Jill sounds like she's panicking, but also she'll like have this like nervous chuckle that she does, kind of. So she just seems like, wow, this is fucked up, isn't it? Not really horror protagonist stuff.
Yeah, and I think the fact that you get some of these iconic lines that are just so silly that you have to hear them to understand just how silly they are. Like you were almost a Jill sandwich.
Classic line.
Let me give you this
one we all use to this day.
Yeah.
You're the master of unlocking. Here's the lockpick.
That was the line that I was like, okay.
It's like the first line in the game too.
Yeah. This is what we're gonna be doing for the rest of this game. It's just so silly. There's at the very end, literally one of the last lines that you hear while you are fighting the final boss on the helicopter pad that you're about to use to escape. Barry says something to the effect of, like, "You're doing it, Jill. You're an Amazon, Jill." I'm like, what are you talking about? I had to go back and find the video just so I could rehear that line because it was so silly.
And then they just huck a rocket launcher out of the side of a helicopter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what you use to kill the thing.
I just love, like, Jill finds Barry at one point, and it's just like, Jill, it's a weapon. It's really powerful, especially against living things. Better take it with you. It's like, yeah, I bet this rocket shell is really good against living things, as opposed to all my bullets.
Mm-hmm.
I've mostly just been killing chairs and tables. I'm glad we finally have something for the living.
It would be interesting if there was something not living that you could use it against, like a robot or something, but that would be a very different game.
A zombie, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe a zombie that's too good, like the final boss or something.
Richard, I love the scene with Richard. Oh, Jill, this house is dangerous. There are terrible demons. Ouch.
Ow.
Oh my God, he does say ouch.
You're wounded.
He's literally
what kind
dying. There's blood gushing out of his chest.
Ouch.
Ouch.
Jill, you're wounded. What kind of demon attacked you? It was a huge snake, also poisonous.
Yeah.
Ugh. Ugh.
This is the guy who's like, "Get me the serum," and then
yes,
you go
there
and
is
get him the serum.
Oh no, I should have brought some with me.
It's a very funny game, oddly enough.
Mm-hmm.
It is, and I don't think that was sold to me quite so much. Like, I thought that the dialogue was awkward. I didn't understand how stilted the delivery was and how silly the lines were to begin with. Like, it's a very funny game anytime anyone speaks. Which made the tension a little weird. Go ahead.
Do you think, I was wondering this as I was playing, do you think, and this might just be specific to video games, but do you think horror has a statute of limitations? So like at a certain point, like cultural artifacts that were scary can no longer be scary?
I think this game has a shelf life, but I think that horror movies from like the 50s and 60s can still be very effective. I don't think it's necessarily a shelf life. I think there are some horror movies and things that the thing that they are making the source of the horror is not that universal. Like I remember there was a horror movie where like if you were on like voice, it was like a texting horror movie, like your cell phone was gonna kill you. And those sorts of movies are not universal enough; they become hokey.
Or if
But I
it's
think
like, oh, it was the communists all along.
Uh-huh.
You'd be like, what?
exactly like Invasion of the Body Snatchers becomes hokey. But I think The Birds or Arachnophobia, like some of those horror movies, I think hold up, even if the movie itself is dated.
When it comes to the movie aspect, I think it largely depends on how convincing the monster or whatever is being presented is. Like, Alien is still scary. Although even I watched it recently, and it was also like rubber suit, just sort of writhing around. But it's still compelling. For something like this, I think I would have to see the remake of this game actually to judge this one if it like got outmodded basically. This did not feel scary. Maybe the remake makes the zombies more frightening, but
Was it ever? Like, I didn't look up any like contemporary accounts. Were people scared in '96?
let's see if there's a reception thing. They described it as entertaining to watch, as it is to play. It said the GamePro described the story and cinematics as mostly laughable, but felt the gameplay's gripping pace and heavy challenge of both the combat and the puzzles make the game effectively terrifying. I also found the puzzles terrifying.
They were, but for different reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like always good game, maybe never scary.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say I saw this game when I was a child. I was maybe like 5 or 6 when I saw this game the first time, and this was the first game that gave me nightmares.
Okay.
My cousin played it, and just seeing I remember the scene where you find the dude who's been eaten by crows, and that's where you get the bazooka if you're Jill. That scene gave me nightmares. I ran out of the room, and then I had nightmares about a haunted mansion for like a week from this game. So it's evocative, even if it's not like the writing. And it's worth saying, like, this game was written, like, the dialogue is in English in the Japanese version too, because this is America. It's supposed to be Americans, so like it's dubbed or it's subtitled in Japanese. All of the voice acting is what it is. It's not like it was recorded 2 different voice tracks.
There was one part that genuinely creeped me out, even now as a supposed adult. Is at the very beginning when like that white-headed creepy dude turns around and he just has these like beady staring eyes as he's eating somebody. That was like it wasn't frightening, but like it was a very creepy face.
Yeah. That was the moment that got a lot of people, I think, when this game first came out, because it was like, ooh, spooky.
The game got me with Neptune, like when the shark shows up. Like, I'm wandering around in water, and I'm like at the far end of the room, and all of a sudden it cuts to a cutscene of something moving towards me in the water, and I'm like, what the hell is moving this fast? And it's a fucking shark. You're in ankle deep water.
It's a few of them.
Yeah, you're in knee deep water, and there's a shark, and you basically can't hurt it because it's too fast. I barely escaped. Like, that happens when they introduce the hunters the first time, and you see this creature that is running through the environment that you walked through, and it is coming up to the door that you just opened and is just in your space as soon as the cutscene ends. Like, those things I think are really effective. It made me really scared anytime a cutscene happened when I opened a door, because they might introduce an enemy that would just kill me on the spot.
Yeah, man. Just Chris would open his mouth, and you're like, wow, had to blow it.
Yeah. So how was the music in your version of the game? Because you didn't play the director's cut, right? How was it?
It was
Adequate,
fine.
forgettable. I mean,
It was a lot of like ambient noise basically, and then every so often you'd hit like the moment when something is chasing you, or you're gonna come around the corner and there'll be something there, and then there's like a music sting. But it seemed fine, like about what you would expect for a game of this time. What were you experiencing?
So let me tell you the story of Mamoru Samuragachi, who is the composer of the director's cut, allegedly. So he was going deaf and lost his hearing in like 1999, I believe.
Like Beethoven, sure.
Like Beethoven, much like Beethoven. So he was a successful composer, except he's deaf. Except it turns out that someone was ghostwriting all of his work for years.
Oh, this was this guy?
Yeah.
Nice.
He directed the director's cut. He composed or paid someone to compose the director's cut music. They apparently composed it in a few weeks, and it's possible also that the sound library that they used was screwed up. So, like, most of the music's fine. There's just one section that I feel jumps out, and it is in the basement of the mansion. It sounds like fart sounds. Someone's playing fart sounds on like an accordion or something. It's hilarious. Most of the rest of the game is fine.
When you say the basement, is that like when you're in the actual like the sciencey?
No,
part?
Not the lab. Like
okay.
You it's when you.
Because man, that would be rough for the tension.
Lake or whatever.
No, it's not when you go into the catacombs. It's very briefly, like you go down an elevator, and that puts you in like a kitchen area downstairs, like that area, and a zombie like comes at you. Like there's a cutscene, and then a zombie comes at you. It's that space. So what do we think in terms of like the story of this game? Like it's basically a chemical experiment gone wrong. It goes out. What did you think of like the set dressing that they did to try and sell you on the, Outbreak storyline?
I mean, it's basically a story of corporate malfeasance, right? Like, insofar as it's a story of a corporation trying to cover up its own crimes, let's say, it makes sense. It's historically reasonable.
Knowing where it ends up, this is like the tamest Resident Evil is at any given point in its history, where it's just like Umbrella says that they were trying to make a monster virus, and they did, and then it killed everyone here. It only escalates from there, given what I know of the series.
It becomes like a cosmetic thing in one of the movies.
Yeah, the movies are a whole nother thing. It's fine.
I really enjoyed.
It's what I expected from this game.
I enjoyed it. I thought that like they try to sell you on like you find logs. I don't know if this is the first one of. It can't be the first game that did the person while they're dying writes a log of them dying and turning into a monster. There's got to be a trope page somewhere for like log of person as they die. But
TV tropes, log of person as they die.
One like logs as he becomes a zombie too.
Yeah,
he's just like
itchy tasty,
hungry, ugly face.
Smash.
Oh yeah,
itchy tasty. Which is another iconic line from this game. You get one person who's like, I've got the virus. I'm not coming home. By the time you read this, I will have ended myself. But, we've done bad here. But I think they do a good job of selling you on like this virus outbreak. Like many of the people you're fighting against are the researchers and staff who worked at this mansion laboratory, which is a sweet setup, I gotta say. If you're going to be someone who works in a lab, it being in a mansion is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they stayed there?
I mean, there's a dormitory, right? That's where the garden is.
Good point.
So I think most people lived in the dormitory, and probably some people lived in the mansion, or at least worked in the mansion. But yeah, it's a good location for an evil corporate retreat. Just set up a mansion in the middle of the woods. And yeah, so like the end of the game, it's revealed that Wesker was the bad guy all along. He was your captain, and you trusted him, but he was a bad guy.
Wait, we got to talk about the picture of Wesker.
Oh yeah, please do.
In order to reveal this, they decide to show you a series of photographs, which are like, here's the studies that we were doing, here's the Neptune, here's the Cerberus, and at the end, they're like, Wesker is hanging out with a bunch of the scientists, and he still has his stupid fucking sunglasses on, and that's how you know it's him. It's so silly.
It's his only weakness, really.
Yeah, he cannot take the sunglasses off.
Yeah, so for my version of the game, and it's also worth mentioning, there are different endings to this game, too.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, at one point, you fight the snake a second time, and Jill, when you're Jill, at least, you fall down a hole afterwards, or you go down the hole. Barry, like, lowers you down with a rope, then he drops the rope. You can leave at that point, and it'll continue the game, and Barry, if you don't wait for Barry to get a rope, Barry will end up dead at the end of the game.
Is that what happens?
Yeah.
That's what decides it?
That is one of the things that decides what ending you get. You can also, at one point, you're in the catacombs and Barry's with you, and you can decide if you want to go with Barry or if you want to split up, and whether you want Barry to go in front of you or not, and that changes your ending. You can find Chris. Like, there are some discs that you can find, and if you find all 3 of them and use them in the proper spots, you can get a password to save Chris. And you can forget to save Chris. That's also an option. So, like, there's a bunch of different endings you can get.
Is it possible to not even come across him?
Chris?
Like,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that room that he's locked in, if you don't find the passcodes, you won't get in.
It's the same thing for Jill, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's the best ending, which is Barry is alive and you save Chris. In Jill's ending, Rebecca's alive and you save Jill. And then depending on if anyone of your followers dies, and also I don't think the mansion explodes if you don't do. If any of your followers die, the mansion will not explode, is what it seems is implied. So it presents a very different result, depending on what you do in the game.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know how you would know, like, oh shit, Barry got. Is this a story death or not? Because
you just replay the game.
A lot of people die. Like,
infinite replay value too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they do give you a key so that you can wear different outfits.
Is that what that's for?
Yeah, the
closet.
room.
The closet key.
Yep. That's New Game Plus. You can wear outfits.
I was like, I don't know what this is for. They say find the closet. I'm like, I'm not gonna do that.
It's the one room you couldn't unlock in the mansion.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so that's kind of it. And I mean, what did you think of fighting the Tyrant? Because it's the only enemy. It's that and the Chimeras that actually move fast. And boy, oh boy, did I not like fighting anything that could move fast.
Did you think he moved fast?
I
thought. Well, yeah, he's not a shambling zombie fast.
The second phase, so like the second time you fight him, he moves much faster.
Oh yeah,
when he does that like charge attack.
Yeah. He starts doing stuff that if I didn't have a Magnum just capable of unloading on the guy, I probably would have died.
Mm-hmm.
Which sucked. I did not like that. Do not make me fight fast enemies in this game.
No. It's not like an interesting boss fight either. You just sort of create space, shoot, create space, shoot.
Yeah. He walks at you. In the second version, he walks at you more, and then you get a rocket launcher and you blow him up. That's how it goes.
I like that there's just like a steaming pile of limbs.
Just a smoking crater where he stood. It's very funny. They were very funny. They were using what they had.
I also enjoyed. I shot some of the zombies with the grenade launcher, and their arms blow off when you shoot them. It's very funny.
That's good. That's good attention to detail, as this game showed throughout.
Yep.
Yeah. So, any closing thoughts on the Resident Evil? Any other things you want to touch on?
One thing I wanted to ask. In one of these reviews, Computer Gaming World gave more mixed reviews for the Windows version, explaining that they tried to hate it with its graphic violence, rampant sexism, poor voice acting, and use of every horror cliche. However, it's actually quite fun. The graphic violence I get. The poor voice acting I get. The horror cliches I get. Was it that sexist?
I mean, so Chris's route's a little bit more sexist.
Oh, I guess he does deal with like Rebecca more.
Yeah, she's just sort of like a damsel. But like,
I see.
if we're grading on like a mid-90s video game curve, I don't know if I would call it rampant.
This
not
seems
good, but
it seems relatively fine in like what was Tomb Raider out at this time? Like
No, this is pre-Tomb Raider.
Okay. What are contemporaries to this? 1996 games. Tomb Raider was 1996.
It was 96, but I don't know if Tomb Raider came out before or after.
Yeah,
Resident
I'm not
Evil.
sure.
But either way, they wouldn't have been informed by each other.
That's true. I don't know.
October 96 versus
March? March?
Resident Evil, very first one. Let me find it.
This came out on March 22nd, 1996.
It came out before.
Yeah.
Tomb Raider.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that it's worth, like, these characters don't have enough lines to be that sexist.
There's not enough characterization going on here.
Yeah, it's not like Barry goes, "Jill, you hysterical woman, you know, put a tampon in it and get over it. Get over it."
I mean,
Like,
he does call you the lockpick master, and it feels like he would
master
not
of
call you
unlocking.
that. Yeah, exactly. He would not call you that if he was sexist.
they drew the line at Amazon. They were like, Amazon,
Oh, yeah.
what a slur.
Uh,
Jill, use your feminine wiles to seduce the locks.
oh, boy. That'd
Also, neither here nor there, but the tyrant having a giant heart on the outside of its chest
Exposed
feels like
heart.
a design flaw for the ultimate
Yeah.
weapon.
As I was playing it, I was like, that seems like an oopsie. If I was making the ultimate
gonna
weapon,
shoot
I would
that.
simply put the heart on the inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Working's on the inside. It's been working for years. Let's not change it.
That
Yeah.
is a repeating Resident Evil trope. There will always be a heart on the outside somewhere, and that will be the weak point.
And it will glow.
And it will glow.
Well, I think that's it for the first Resident Evil. I'm glad, from my historical perspective, I've never played a game in this series. I've seen some of them, but I've never played one. And I'm glad that I got to take revenge on the game that scared me when I was a child.
There you go. I will say, I made the mistake of picking Hades back up because Hades 2 was announced this week, and comparing what was door opening running through hallway simulator to I could be playing Hades was a mistake. So
fact.
yeah, I mean, when it actually came together at the end, I liked it much better. But man, that early bit was rough.
The mansion's big, and if you
The
don't know where
mansion's
you're
big.
going, you just wander around a lot.
Yep.
Pete,
Anyway.
any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I don't feel the need to dive back into the Resident Evil series at any time soon, but I've always enjoyed the movies for what they are, and it was nice to see, what inspired them.
Excellent. Em, do we have any words of a robot today?
Well, I asked the robot for some stuff, and it spun its wheel for an hour and a half. So I don't think we're getting any notes from the AI this evening. We had some fun stuff picked out. I particularly liked Resident Evil 1 as a Arrested Development episode. But perhaps I will get that for the Discord. So if you're on the Discord, you will get some
good bonus
AI-generated prompts.
Yes, yeah, perhaps, and maybe we'll pick some of the best ones. We'll give it to you on the Goaty episode. We'll see.
Yeah.
So yeah, this was a good game to revisit. I'm glad that we did this.
Mm-hmm.
So next pick, I believe, is it back to you, Em?
No, it's Pete.
No,
it's me this time.
Pete. Yeah, Pete. What are you doing to us?
So I'm prepared. So I'm going to talk about the games I want to pick, but before I do that, I want to talk about something else real quickly.
Okay.
So I was looking for Steam games, and just games in general, and I came across one that confused and alarmed me. And I don't want to play it, but I want to know if y'all have heard of it so you can explain it to me. If not, that's fine. It's called Needy Streamer Overload.
Oh boy, I don't know if I've heard of that. What is its premise?
Basically, like, you're a streamer and you're trying to like.
Wait. I know this one.
You know this one?
I know this one.
Yes. This is basically you are not the streamer. You are the manager of a girl who wants to become a big streamer. And so you have to like tell her what to do in order to plan her streams and such. It is strange, I'll say.
It seemed strange.
Yes. There's like, you can give her drugs to like get her hyped up on speed so that she is more animated, and it's not condoned by the game.
But it's allowed.
But it is allowed. You can also like go on dates with her because you're her mod, but you're kind of in it for your own gains if you choose that route, I'll say. It's
apparently I remember getting her to quit streaming and have a normal life was a fail condition.
Yeah. There's many ways that the routes can end. One of them is you just become a normie. She can overdose. She can become like
depressed.
Findom. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to play that, but
okay.
I appreciate you explaining it to me because I was very confused.
No problem.
So, moving on. So, 2 games. I'll give you an option. They're very different. Would you like something that's a little bit more, let's say, sort of like manic and twitchy in a good way, or something that's a little bit more calm and contemplative?
Are you sure the manic twitchy is not Needy Streamer Overload?
I'm not describing the characters in the game. I'm describing the gameplay itself.
Gotcha.
I feel like we haven't played anything twitchy in a while.
Okay.
We've been playing some Brood.
Sure, I'll play something twitchy, I think.
Okay, then we are going to play a platforming game in which a demented AI tries to stop you. So it reminds me of the game. No. It reminds me of the short story I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. Good one.
But it is not the video game I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream?
But it is not, no. We're going to play Will You Snail.
What?
Yep. Not Will You Fail. Will You Snail.
Oh, I think I've seen this before.
Whoa, what the fuck? This is not what I expected it to look like.
No.
I guess we will snail.
Oh,
Yep.
I know this one. Oh, no. Okay.
Oh, no?
So this is an interesting game. This is interesting.
Okay.
I did no research beyond the description page. It seemed interesting. So if it's calamitous, we'll deal with it then.
It's not I just remember there's a narrator that talks at you all the time, and that seemed annoying. But the premise of the game is interesting.
Yes.
You are a snail, and the AI is trying to anticipate where you're going to be, and it is live deploying traps and things
and it
to
hates
try
you.
and kill you because it hates you, because the game hates you.
Mhm.
What was
All
the
right.
other game that we could have picked?
I'll probably pick it later, but I'll
okay.
tell you anyway. I don't mind to spoil the surprise. The other one was Strange Horticulture.
Ooh, I've not heard of that one.
I don't know what that is.
I've heard of Will You Snail. I have not heard of Strange Horticulture, but that's
I'll probably circle back around in about 6 weeks, and you'll probably hear about it then.
excellent. All right. Well, thank you, Pete.
Yeah, it's nice blast from the past.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Em.
Thank you. We finally did a first game in a series, and it was fun.
Yeah. And thank you, listeners. Reminder, you can get in touch with the show at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our comment sections, and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. You can support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens. And if you're in a position to do so, please donate to the National Network of Abortion Funds. Till next time, peace.
Break it